then I still had 3 months service yet because I hadn't taken any leave and all that time, and every year you got a month.
Right.
And I had 90 days coming, so I stayed in until into March something.
Now, you were never earmarked, your unit was never earmarked or scheduled after VE Day to head for Japan and the Pacific Theater, or?
Some did.
Some did.
Yeah, because the warrant officer in our unit got his orders. Mm-hmm. And he's the one I still see and hear from every year, and he's retired with the pennies, and he was out in Phoenix, Sun City.
Oh, sure, Del Webb's retirement place.
And his wife's name was Helen. We were always together, and Helen, my wife, and Tom, while I wasn't home yet, they got together all the time, and she was from Ohio.
Okay.
And they didn't have any children yet. So anyway, he got his orders to go to Japan. And so he and I made a bet. He bet me that as long as he got his orders to go to Japan, he bet me that he'd be home before I would.
Ah.
And he said, if he wins the bet, we have to come to Ohio and go to the University of Ohio football game when they play Minnesota the first time. Or if I win, he'll come up here to Ohio and Minnesota. Well, by God, he won.
He got home first.
He got home first because he didn't have to go anyplace. And I still had to wait to go through all this coming home.
Sure.
And so then, the very first time we played, Al and I went down and spent 2-3 days with him and went to the game. And
went to Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah, so that's kind of funny things.
You mentioned the black truck driver. In World War II, basically the military was still segregated. Mm-hmm. Did you have any other occasions where that became a part of any activities you were involved in?
I'll tell you exactly. When I was Special Service Officer in England, 1 week we would hold a dance in Taunton at a big armory there for the blacks. Mm-hmm. And then maybe 2 weeks later, it wouldn't be every week, we'd have one for the white, and that's the way it was. And they had more of those English girls from Taunton and around there turned out for the black dance as they did from the white ones. And we'd get a good band, mm-hmm. and all that, and I'd line that up, and then they would, that's the way it worked. And they would even tell them they're American Indians. But I don't know, that's what the story was all the time.
Yeah.
But those gals, then after those dances, see, this was all right there at our post, right out of there. And they had these pubs and stuff around there because it kind of all joined this town of Taunton. We were just 3-4 miles out. Then we had to go around there and shag them out at 11 o'clock, and they'd be in there squeezing off each other and stuff, in those bars and booths and stuff.
Yeah. And
kick them out. Tell them it's bed check.
Oh, curfew time, more or
Yeah,
less.
time
Okay.
to get home. But,
by and large, did the white and black units get along fine, or was there a noticeable dissension at any point where you were?
Well, we had quite a few black ones, that were military. A lot of them were military stuff, and we didn't have any trouble there in Taunton with them. But I noticed one thing when I went up there to that last place with our 10 men, and we did have that house to stay in.
Right.
And they had about 200 black officers and thousands of men. And they were up there helping take in those troops that, I was telling you about.
Oh, okay, the prisoners of war.
Yeah. And I was the only white officer up there with these men. And I would go over there to that officer's to eat. And it's just like I'm all by myself.
Right.
And so that our 10 men were supposed to go with those hundreds of others, and they were just separated, you know what I mean? I don't know why, but I knew a lot of them. And so then we just went and started drawing our own rations.
Mm-hmm.
They said we could do it, because if there'd have been more, the white people up there too, but there weren't any. Because we were just setting up the supplies for them to use and all that. So I don't know, that's the only time I saw, I was the only one.
Okay.
So it was a different feeling.
Yeah, to be in the minority?
You know, with it wasn't even, if there was a few others to go with you, you know what I mean?
Right.
So I didn't do anything about it or anything, but the men didn't like it too well. And so we had one of our fellows that was like up there like with the quartermaster and stuff, and he could go and know what he could do about getting some rations. And this fellow's place that we took over, that doctor, he had a potato bin full of potatoes and all kinds of stuff in there, and his stoves and stuff worked, so we just cooked our own.
May as well use them.
Yeah.
Now, during that 90 days after you got back that you had leave time, were you on leave for 90 days, or were you?
I didn't have to do anything. I just could go and start work and stuff.
So for you, the transition from military to civilian life was just walk in one door and out the other?
Well, see, I stayed in the reserve I was in altogether another 5 years.
Oh, okay.
And the reason I got out of the reserve is because after that, I went to Austin and I worked for 3 years, and then I started our own store. And I borrowed money and all that and had a prescription shop. And I got orders to go back to that next war.
Oh, to the Korean War.
Korean War, and I had to report in 30 days. Well, there's no way I could report in 30 days, so I had to get some petitions and stuff from bankers, and then I was supplying St. Olaf Hospital. I had charge of all their prescriptions over there, and the nursing homes and all that, so they decided I had a good enough job, or important enough one to get me out.
Okay. But of other people that you know of personally from your service days, either back here in Minnesota or ones that you served with, in general, how was the transition from military to civilian? Was it smooth? Have problems?
No, none of ours did, because I heard from lots of them and all the officers, and I've heard from, well, at first dozens of enlisted men that were with us. And
okay.
They all had good jobs, and so they tell the different things they were doing, like one lays carpet and all that, and I hear from them every year, and they've all done well, that I have.
Now, do you figure that because yours was a smaller, tighter-knit unit, this company, that you kept track of each other a little more than some of the bigger line companies?
Well, a lot of the big line companies, you know, where they're big ones, they have these unit reunions.
Oh, okay.
See, and we never did have, because there really wasn't enough of us. But as far as being a unit together, we knew everybody. You knew everybody's name, and they knew you, and if they had a problem, they'd come to you, or if you had a problem at home, we'd write their family and all that. Where if you had all these big units, people, they get together and have a big time because they belong to that unit, I think.
Right.
But if individually, why, we knew everybody by first name and everything, and it just like for an example, if none of our officers liked to play poker or cards, and we had quite a few enlisted men that did, and if you were on duty at night, you know, bed checking stuff,
right.
What's going on in the barracks, and, you know, even though there were so many of them like that. And if I'd walked through there and they were playing a nickel-dime game or something, this is how well, and they knew I did this, and so did our other officers. And if I had to go to another place and check an hour later, I'd sit down there and put out the money and play. When I got all done, if I lost, it was theirs. If I won something, not much, I just put it in and said divided.
Right.
And that was it.
Yeah.
So they were some of those same guys that played ball for me and stuff, you know.
Now, you still, I gather from a couple of things you mentioned, you still have contact with some of the people that you served with 50 years ago. And the conclusion that one draws, and this is in general why World War II gets such a serious treatment in the study of history, is that obviously the activities that we call World War II made a major impact, major impression on the lives of the people that were directly involved. Does that match with your experience, that that was a once-in-a-lifetime experience?
It was, and I think that people learned a lot from being over in a war like that compared to what they're going through today with all these little wars that they think they're getting into and why. And when we went in, we were ready, and we knew what we thought anyway was the reason, you know. But today I don't think people realize why we're into all this stuff. I don't know what you think about that, but there's so many little places they're into, and we're not taking care of so many things in the United States.
But you didn't have to go out and give the thousands and thousands of troops a pep talk saying, hey guys, here's why we got to go. Everybody knew.
Sure. Just look at those young fellas that I had. Some were farm kids and every type of life, and they were younger. I was 25, but some of those were 18, 19. And when they asked for volunteers, any unit that was over there, if they didn't like the unit they were in, they could join the infantry even after they were over in England.
Oh, okay. Infantry was open anytime. Okay.
So there's one fellow who was a real good kid, big fella from a farm someplace, and I guess he thought, you know, this type we had was just not for him, you know, filling boxes and all that, and he wanted to join the infantry. So they let him sign up, and we got another person to place him from someplace, and he got killed the first thing he got over there. Because they kept track of where they went, and he was such a good kid. But that's what he wanted.
Yeah. Let's see. Without getting into all the particulars, Roosevelt, Churchill, leaders and so forth, in the 50 years that have gone since then, have events, the situations caused you to change your thoughts or impressions of any of the individuals who were, be on our side, you said Roosevelt, Churchill, or Hitler, Stalin, Mussolini, people in the other countries, anything that would change how you view any of those, looking back?
I still, everybody over there, when Roosevelt died, you know, they felt bad. They were crying, and because they thought a lot about him for helping. And I think he did, because then he met with Churchill and that, and they'd have all these things and the stars and stripes and stuff about the two of them, and they figured those two really, and they really felt bad that we weren't the ones that took over up in Germany after it was over instead of Russia, because they, you know, England, those people really got it bad. I mean, all that time, you wouldn't think so in a little country that way, but they got bombed every night. And those planes would go right over us and head for London and the big towns, you know, where they had industries and stuff. And so they thought a lot of those too. And yeah, he never thought much of Hitler and them, although they were all leaders up there. But I still don't think the average soldier that was over there thinks that we should ever have let Russia didn't fight in that war as long, and they come in from the other way where they didn't see all this stuff that happened through England, France, and Germany. France and Belgium and all those had lots of destruction that were just not the big cities either, just through those little towns like I told you, all the way from France up to Germany. Through Germany they just took everything out.
Yeah, devastated.
Yeah.
You were still in Germany then, probably, Germany or France, when the war in Japan ended. How soon after they used the atomic bombs there were you guys informed of that?
We knew it right away.
That was instantaneous almost?
Yeah, yeah. Well, that was on everything over there.
What was your first thought or reaction when you heard about something called an atomic bomb?
Well, you'd kind of heard of that stuff, you know, but they didn't think they'd ever use one, I guess. But that was, I think most of them thought that was great because of the way they did us over in Hawaii, you know, because that was the worst thing that happened compared to things in the war over, you know, the other way.
Yeah.
Don't you think that's what the feeling was too?
Well, I was too young to remember, but that's, by all accounts, as I talk to or hear from people who lived it during that time period, that was a pretty universal thought. I raised the question because, of course, people who didn't live through the time period have a tendency to treat it on kind of an unemotional level, say, well, boy, that dropping the atomic bomb, you've got to think seriously about that, and they just can't grasp how close to Pearl Harbor that was.
Yeah. So when they snuck in and did all that over in Hawaii there, and then for us to do the other, it's just a retaliation, and I guess it would have gone on for years. It could have.
What were you doing, do you recall, when you first heard about the attack on Pearl Harbor? Can you recall even today what you were
was
doing?
the exact date on that?
December 7th, 41? The Japanese attack.
I was thinking of after this.
No, I jumped in.
No, I was over home in 41. I was over in West Concord in the drugstore helping my folks decorate the store, and Helen was over there too from Pine Island.
Okay.
Because we were going together then. We weren't married yet, but we had given her a ring and all that. And we were going to wait till we knew whether I could afford, you know, to take care of family or anything.
Right.
We agreed to all that. And so then she was over there helping me, and I was on a stepladder. We had the radio on there and heard that. And man, it just about floored you, you know, when you think about it. And to have that happen so bad over in Pearl Harbor. And I wouldn't be surprised if right about that time I made up my mind I'm going to get in some way.
Right.
Because I would never enlist. I enlisted on my own, and I was never drafted. And I did have those records at the clinic about my eye and all that. It's on my records.
Yeah.
And so people, when I'd go over home then, some of those kids that I went to school with, farmers, they're taken right off the farm. I'd go in the store and they said, how come you're not in the Army? Well, I said, I can't get in. So I listened to that enough and I said, I'm going to get in some way. And that's when our doctor helped me out.
Right. Interesting. I'm from that other generation where you had a lot of doctors who were helping people stay out.